Hey, what's going on, Infosec addicts? Joe McCrae here. It is 5:30 in the morning. It's early. And I'm out here. It's a little dark, so got a little light behind my phone. Wanted to catch up with you guys and do another mentor moment. Things that I was just talking with someone about was becoming a solution architect. So let's say you're in the situation where you want to advise customers on being a solution architect, and you know what I'm thinking? This is way too dark. All right, much better. A solution architect. You want to help customers with solutions for really complex environments. What I think would be the best thing to do is, if you want to move into those kind of jobs and you're going to be a senior person, I would say that you've got a couple of areas that you need to focus on. There's 3 areas of IT security. So the first one is networking, the second one is operating systems, and the third one is programming. What you want to do is you want to try and get to the point where you are an engineering level on all 3 areas. Your networking, you would want to do not your CCNA, you'd want to do like your CCNP. Something that demonstrates that you've got really strong networking capability. Not that you're like a CCIE, like super ninja networking guy, but you're really, really strong on networking, really understand the technology. Operating systems, I would do like not an MCSA, right? The administrator, I would do like an MCSE. Same thing with your Red Hat certs, right? You don't want to do the low-level Red Hat certs. You want to do the medium-tier Red Hat certs. And then finally, you would want to do something that demonstrates that you really understand programming, right? So I would do something for databases like an MCDBA, OCP, and I would probably do something like Oracle Certified Java Developer, Microsoft Certified Solution Developer, for .NET. Good God, Joe, that's an awful lot of certs. And short answer is, yeah, it's a lot. Bro, suck it up. If you're really trying to get to that point where you can advise organizations on these technologies, you're going to need to be proficient in those technologies. And then I would also look at cloud, like AWS Solutions Architect. I would be looking to do those. And inside of a couple of months, you can get fairly proficient in each one of those categories. So let's say 3 to 6 months, you could get proficient on the Linux operating system side, 3 to 6 months proficient on the Cisco networking side, 3 to 6 months, you could get proficient on the coding side. Now again, the key thing with being a solutions architect is you're not a fingers on the keyboard person. You're just a person who understands the technology well enough that you can communicate with people about it. If you look at my career, I am not the most technical person out there. There are plenty of guys who are way better hackers than I am, plenty of guys who are way better reversers than I am, plenty of guys who are just so much better fingers on the keyboard than I am. But I was a much better writer, I was a much better speaker, and I really understood the technologies. I've got well over 30 certifications, and I don't have a college degree. So the things that really helped my career was that I was willing to write, I was willing to speak, and I was willing to do the certifications. I needed a way to justify getting into a lot of these job roles. I would show that, look, I'm a strong writer, good speaker, and now because I've got all these different certifications, I have demonstratable ability that I can communicate with people on networking, on operating systems, on programming. So you can help customers with understanding these problems that they're facing, technology, things that they want to integrate. You can help people. You can design solutions that have to interact with all these different technologies, because that's what being a solution architect is really all about. I gotta be honest, it was fun. It was a great job when I did it. I had a good time doing a lot of complex network integrations. I worked for Extreme Networks at the time, and we deployed network access control solutions. We deployed network intrusion prevention systems. They were great. I had a good time. Did a lot of PKI work. Did a lot of integrations with LDAP and all that kind of stuff, a lot of wireless. It was a good time. I really learned a lot. I got to interface with a lot of clients. It was a good time. It's about, do you enjoy that kind of work? And when I did it, I enjoyed it. And a lot of people ask me like, well, how did I get into that kind of work? And the simple answer was, I had a demonstratable proficiency in all these areas of technology. I wasn't the best in all those areas, but I was pretty good. And I'll tell you the story, and I know you're gonna laugh, but I met a guy, his name was John Hafner. It's 2003, I'm in Iraq, and I'm pretty good, not too big-headed, but pretty big-headed. I'm pretty good, right? I've got my little CCNA, and I've got my little MCSE, and I do my little Linux, and I'm pretty good, right? I'm helping a guy with a Linux laptop, and we're trying to install Linux on his laptop, and he's got an NVIDIA card. And John Hafner's our network guy, and he walks into the office, and he kind of looks over. He's like, "Oh, you doing a Linux install?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm helping him install Linux." So it looks like we're having some little issues with his NVIDIA driver. And John, being the Cisco guy, kind of looks over. He's like, "Oh, yeah, go to NVIDIA's website. They've got a little shell script that you can download and run, and it figures out what kind of card you have and does the install." And I kind of looked over at him like, "Our network guy knows Linux? Okay." I didn't really think anything of it, but okay, cool. In my career up to that point, I really didn't run into too many people who, if they knew one thing, knew something else. Like if they were a Linux guy, they only knew Linux. If they were a Cisco guy, they only knew Cisco. So it was my first time running into a guy who could do that. I was kind of like, wow, well, I guess you know some Linux. A couple of weeks goes by and we're deploying a new firewall. And at the time, it was a Cisco Pix firewall. So I'm deploying the Cisco Pix firewall. The firewall is throwing all kinds of errors, and the errors were called babbles. The router and the firewall are having a difficult time talking. It's because the router had a 10 meg interface and the firewall had a 100 meg interface. So the router's throwing babbles. So John happens to walk in while we're going through this. And I asked John, because, I'm a CCNA, but I'm not really that strong in networking at the time. So John's like, "Oh, it's really easy. All you got to do is grab a switch and set the switch between the firewall and the router to 100 meg full, and that'll clean up all those babbles." I'm like, "Really?" Yeah. So I go out to the Connex. Now, bear in mind, guys, we're in Iraq, so it's like 120 degrees outside, and all the stuff is in Connexes, which are these big storage containers, kind of like what you put on a ship to ship stuff, shipping containers. We go out to the Connex, grab a switch, hook the switch up, and everything is like super, super hot, covered in dirt, dust. Really common for network gear not to work. We plug up the switch between the router and the firewall and console into the switch, and now we're configuring the switch. We do a password recovery on it. We get the thing working. And while I'm typing on the switch, the config goes scattered. What the heck? I'm like, John, this happens all the time, right? The gear gets so hot out there in the Connex, plus it's oftentimes covered with a lot of sand. Usually if you just power cycle it, it's okay. John goes, "Oh, don't worry about it." And then John sits down at the command prompt and starts to configure the switch. And he's configuring the whole switch blind. Frickin' blind. I'm looking at him going like, what the? I've never seen anybody do anything like this in my life. Like, this guy is doing all the config on the Cisco switch, and he can't see the screen. I'm like, okay, this brother's a ninja. One day I'm out in John's office, and we're talking. He's frustrated with somebody down in Baghdad, and he's like, "Oh God, I hate talking to these people down there." And I'm like, "What's wrong?" He was like, "I'm trying to tell them that their network config is wrong, and I can't stand talking to NAs." NA? He's like, CCNAs. "Oh, Joe, I'm a CCIE." I'm like, okay. Now, I'm now putting two and two together. He's talking about he is a CCIE, which is the top Cisco network expert, and he is frustrated trying to explain things to CCNAs, the lowest level of which at that point, that is what I am, right? I'm like, oh my God. So we get to talking, and after a while, I kind of get over my little pride thing and realize that when it comes to networking, this guy really freaking knows networking. So he's a triple CCIE. He's done CCIEs in all these different areas. Double CCIE. He's done multiple CCIEs, and he was Oracle certified, and he was Red Hat certified, and he was Microsoft certified. And he told me he worked for something called an integrator. I had never heard of that before. You worked for an integrator? He was like, yeah, we go out to these different places, companies, and we do large deployments, technology deployments. I was like, really? Fast forward 3 years, I've now done almost 20 certs, so now we hit like 2006, and I became an integrator. I wanted to be that good. I wanted to be like, oh man, this guy knows Linux, this guy knows Oracle. And I remember my first capture the flag, I just wanted to be good like those guys. Just like seeing somebody who was that good where he could configure a switch with no screen. I wanted to be that good, like, whoa, I want to be able to do that. It didn't take that long, a couple of years, and you're doing that kind of work. It's just like anything. You just have to sit down and do the work. If you're into that, being a solution architect, doing deployments of really complex technologies, I think it's a good time. I really do. It's a good time, it's fun work, it's challenging work, it's constantly changing, and I think it's the kind of thing where you're gonna be in demand. I mean, really in demand. If you want these types of jobs where you can work from home and you can travel and you can work from all over the world and you can have a clearance and work in clear places or work for Fortune 500s, being a solution architect would be the way to go. But like I said, you have to be a good communicator, you have to be a good writer, and you've got to be competent in all three areas of technology, right? Area number 1, networking. Area number 2, operating systems. Area number 3, programming. You're going to be able to advise executives on how they can accomplish their business goals utilizing these modern technologies. With all that, don't sleep on cloud, so I'd really be looking at like AWS Solution Architect or something like that once you got through all those different areas. This is a really long mentor moment, but I hope you guys got some value out of it. You guys take care.